peace talks shattered. The war now in its fourth month with no end in sight, and we may be creeping closer to a wider war. Let's find out more from national security expert Hal Kempfer joining us live. Hal, thank you. What's on top of your mind tonight?
Well, Brian, what's on my mind is, of course, whatever happened in Iraq. One person was hurt, another service member was killed. It was supposed to be a controlled detonation, not quite sure what happened, what went wrong, but obviously something happened. The other thing is there was a missing in action, along with the two service members that were killed over in Jordan. Missing in action was reported. They found remains today. They're trying to figure out if those remains could be that missing service member. So obviously it's a kind of a very sad story of what's out there, but overall, we're seeing more kinetic action, more strikes, and we saw the Iranians hitting that Kuwaiti desalination plant and power plant for a second time, making it very clear the Iranians are going after critical infrastructure of the Gulf states. That could cause a big shift politically with the Gulf states from a defensive to maybe taking a more active role in stopping these Iranian threats.
I was going to ask you, do U.S. casualties get us closer to boots on the ground inside Iran?
I think that's very much something the president's weighing right now. I have no doubt that there are courses of action that involve boots on the ground. I kind of look at because of our focus on the Strait of Hormuz, I really look at the islands out there, Abu Musa, Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb. I look at those right off because we've been doing strikes here, but also those are claimed as sovereign territory by the UAE. So it's not just taking those islands, but who would occupy those islands. That's kind of a set thing. And now look at some of the other islands that are out there, Iraq and Hormuz. Obviously much bigger operations if we were to do something like that, but certainly something to consider. And then of course the president's talked about Kharg Island. That's a pretty big one. That's the one with 90% of the oil comes out of Kharg Island. But those are, on the one hand, Kharg Island is the crown jewel of their oil industry. It's also their Achilles heel.
Hal, reports that U.S. strikes hit a nuclear reactor under development. Does that necessarily mean that Iran might be working on a bomb?
I don't know. That's interesting that they even hit that. And of course, you got to keep in mind, Brian, that they tend to hide all the stuff they're doing. They tend to obscure it under other things with, if you will say, cover activities of what they're doing. So it's very possible that they had something going on there that was tied to maybe developing a bomb or developing some sort of nuclear weapon of any type. So maybe that's why it was hit. Now, we didn't hit an active nuclear power plant. That was one of the things that was first. It seemed a little confusing on that. This was one that was under development, but it's very possible that they could have had something going there. Obviously, we're not going to hit it unless there's some very valid reason, some solid intelligence as to why it needed to be struck.
Hal, how do we get back to plans for peace?
It's going to take a while. I'm not holding my breath. I think there's going to be more kinetic activity. We are seeing a growing schism in Tehran between the hardliner Revolutionary Guard Corps and the other parts of the regime. The president, the head of the legislature, who's Galibaf, who's been also the lead of their negotiating team, and then Foreign Minister Raghchi. There seems to be this growing gap between what they've been trying to negotiate and what the hardliners are doing. We'll see if that continues. We'll see if anything else goes on there. Of course, now we have this amazing story that's out there that the Israelis tried to actually recruit, or did recruit, a former Iranian president who was very anti-Israel, and you can't make stuff like that up. It's just stunning. So we'll see what happens.
Deeper and deeper we go. All right, Hal Kempfer, thank you for your insight and your time tonight. Appreciate it, as always.
Thank you, Brian.